Welcome to Primary Technology, the show about the tech news that matters. Another massive Apple week where they announced the M4 Mac Mini, the M4 iMac, new MacBook Pros, plus 18.1 came out with Apple Intelligence to the public, at least here in the U.S., and 18.2 with Image Playgrounds. Yes, I got access. Yes, it is horrifying. Plus other news from Netflix, Nintendo, earnings, and more. This episode is brought to you by Notion, Audio Hijack, and Data Citizens Dialogue, and by you, the members who support us directly. I'm one of your hosts, Stephen Robles, and joining me as always is my co-host, Jason Aten, who guesses the movie quote every week. Jason, this week, it is, be afraid, be very afraid. Do you know the movie, Jason? We're recording on Halloween, so I chose a scary movie quote. That's the hint.
A scary movie quote. I recognize the quote. I feel like
Jeff Goldblum is the star.
The Fly.
There it is.
That did it for me.
The Fly.
But it was Gina Davis that said it, though, right?
I believe so.
Okay.
But yeah. Jeff Goldblum said it.
Yep.
Be afraid.
You gave it away for me.
Okay, very good. Jason, we have a massive show this week. I think we just got to go. We just got to run. We're going to be running this entire show. We're going to do it. Plus, we have a bunch of 5-star review shout-outs. Thank you to all of you. Greenie24 from the USA, 5 stars on Apple Podcast. Grammy Story from the UK. Spooky.mov, which I guess is like spooky.movie, which is kind of funny. I like that. I don't know if he changed his name just because it was Halloween for the review. Also mentioned a Bang case, which is like I guess an iPhone case that has another action button for running shortcuts. Anyway, I have to check that out. I haven't looked it up yet. So very cool. So fun from the USA. Dominant pocket. I'm just not saying the people who say they don't put their phone in the dominant pocket. But anyway.
So do the math. Everyone need to just do the math.
Exactly. Do the math. Anyone I don't say. MT92 from the USA. Dominant pocket. Kyle Coco from the USA. Scody134 cargo pocket from the USA. That's different. That added a wrinkle to what pocket you put your phone in.
Mm-hmm.
J.M. Vag from Australia. It's Jeef from Switzerland. Lonely Crow. This is their first Apple-y podcast, which, I mean, technically we cover all the tech, but I totally understand.
You're wearing a Mac Pro shirt, so yes, it's fine.
Yeah, that is true. You could definitely say that. Dominant pocket for the iPhone. And Mac McAndrew from the USA. Thank you for all those 5-star reviews. Give us 5-star review, rating and review, any country you are. I see them all in Apple Podcasts. We'll give you a shout out. And this is also, I think this is the third week in a row I asked for developers who listen and watch the show. If you have an app in the App Store, we'd love to plug it here on the show. And so this one is from the Virtual Boy. At least that's his name on social media. You'll see him. He has a wallpaper app, not that wallpaper app. Not that one.
Controversial.
No, not that controversial one. This is a different one. It's called Wall Genie. It's actually it's AI generated wallpapers, but you can generate them in the app, so you can kind of customize them and create new stuff, new wallpapers. These look really cool, the ones they have on the landing page here. It's free to try. It is a small subscription if you want to actually make a bunch and download the high quality, but they look very cool. And Wall Genie. Try a different wallpaper app from someone who listens to the show. Thanks, Virtual Boy, for that. Jason, it was like one right after another. Boom, boom, boom. Apple said they were going to have all announcements all this week. We got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to go day by day. We're going to go in chronological order. Monday, 18.1 came out for the public, which included Apple Intelligence, which you talked about at length on this. Quick question. Did anyone in your family or friend circle, did they download 18.1? Do they have Apple Intelligence? And did anyone have any thoughts about it?
The only one who has thoughts about it is my 10-year-old who only has an Apple Watch, and just every time he sees Snoop Dogg is just devastated that he's not going to have the glowy ring around his watch. That's the one person. It's actually possible that there are, my daughters and my wife have iPhones. They very well may have 18.1 right now and don't know it because it may have just updated overnight. No, none of them really care. Right. Well, we can talk about the 18.2 betas at some point. They will be downloading to 18.2 immediately because we did spend about 2 hours the other night just making Genmoji and Image Playgrounds. We're
going to talk about Image Playgrounds because I finally got access yesterday. I assume because Apple listens to this show and they wanted me to have access so we can record about it.
Nice of them.
Terrifying. All terrifying. Every Image Playground of me. But my kids were like, do me. So yeah. We'll get to that. 18.1 came out and also we had a press release and an announcement video for the M4 iMac. Apple updated that. Some people were on the fence whether or not the iMac would get the M4. I thought you were on the fence actually previously too. No?
About whether it would happen?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was the most likely one. I'll admit that, but that's why they did it first. Because it's well, actually, the reason they did it first is obvious because it only gets the M4 like that, and they sort of laddered them up.
Yeah, it gets the M4 and quote unquote new colors. So I mean, there were some comparison images. A Basic App Guy shared one. Ortolani shared some, but anyway, new colors, different shades of the colors. The green one looks very nice. I'm going to be honest, and it was tempting to me. But I bought a different Mac this week, which we'll get to in a second. But yeah, so M4 iMac, if you were in the market, now's a good time because they were updated. Oh, and USB-C peripherals, Jason.
Yeah.
We now have a USB-C Magic Keyboard and a USB-C Magic Mouse. And half the internet were up in arms because the Magic Mouse literally changed nothing. It just swapped out the Lightning port for USB-C. Were you up in arms, Jason? Were you
No,
upset
because
about
who cares? Listen, they're never going to change this. And the reason why I have to be nice, I'm getting a reputation as being not nice. But let me just say this.
You have to be affable. Yeah,
that's true. The point is they don't want you to charge your mouse while you're using it. So they've made it impossible to use the mouse while you're charging it. The point is this is a wireless mouse. What they know would happen is people would just leave it connected to a lightning cable connected to your Mac. Johnny Ive does not want that to happen, and even though he's no longer at Apple, his departure agreement made them commit to never putting that port anywhere else. Now, listen, how often does a person have to charge a Magic Mouse anyway? Twice a year? 3 times a year at most? For like 10 minutes?
It is not often, and you know, it was funny because we're going to talk about the Mac Mini next, but the Mac Mini power button moved from like the very back to the bottom, and people were up in arms about that, and they were like, USB-C on the bottom of the mouse, power button on the bottom of the Mac Mini, what is the world coming
Apple's falling
to?
apart. I can't even believe this. They're about to lose their status as the most valuable company in the world.
Yeah, and then that's why I made this Photoshop. I don't know if you saw this, Jason.
I did see that. I thought it was amazing that they brought back the power button because there is no power button at all on the MacBook Pro.
I photoshopped a power button on the bottom of the MacBook Pro, and yeah, that did good numbers too.
I have a question about the M4 Mac or iMac first before we go too far. There's not a ton to say about it, I know.
No,
but
yeah. Anyway, the only other update, it has the M4, so it's a little faster. You can get up to 32. It comes with 16 gigs of memory standard now, which actually has been updated across pretty much the whole lineup, which we're going to talk about because 16 gigs is now the base. And it does support better displays. I'm going to refer you to the tech specs page for all of these computers if you want to see how many and what resolution displays these Macs now support with the M4 and M4 Pro, because it is a wildly confusing thing. But yeah, go ahead. What were we going to say?
So I want to talk about those USB-C peripherals for just a second. Do you think that they had figured it all out and decided to do this last year, but they're like, yeah, but next year all we're going to do is add the M4 and spice up the colors just a tiny bit. So why don't we just save the USB versions of the peripherals so that it seems people will be happier? Like, this seems like such a no-brainer. I can't figure out why it took this long. You know what I mean? And it's so, I mean, they put USB-C everywhere else. Right. But if you bought two days ago, if you bought another Magic Keyboard for your iMac, it was going to still have a Lightning port on it. I wonder if it's like, I honestly wonder, like, if somebody has like a Trello board somewhere and they're like, here's possible features. Nope, move that one to next year because we don't have I just don't understand.
It's possible. So I will say I had been waiting for USB-C accessories, and I was like, okay, once it comes, I'm going to buy, because I still use the Magic Mouse. I really like the Magic Mouse. It's my main mouse. I prefer editing videos with it, even over the Magic Trackpad, which is sacrilegious for a lot of people. And so I always thought, as soon as those USB accessories are launched, I'm going to jump on it. I did not, Jason, because I was like, one, it's $100 for a new Magic Mouse. And I'm like, this one, it works great. And I charge it
twice
a
a year. Like, come on. How often do you have to charge it?
It's more than twice. I mean, it's maybe like 4 or 5 times a year. But even so, it's like, it's less than once a month. And that's kind of all that matters. And pro tip, Matthew Casanelli, he mentioned this before, but he basically sets a reminder like every Friday afternoon to plug in his things. So over the weekend they charge, and then he never thinks about it. So because there have been times where I get the low battery warning on my mouse, and I'm about to do like a live webinar, and that moment is stressful. And so, in that regard, I'm like, sheesh, I wish I had a magic trackpad or some other pointed device, because I don't want my battery to die while I'm streaming live here. But if you actually, just charge it regularly, at least once a month, then you should be good. So.
Also, if you charge it for 90 seconds, you can get through a webinar for sure.
And that's typically what I do. And I'm like, I don't want to keep this lightning cable around anymore. But also, I have an iPhone 14 that I film with sometimes, and I connect it with a lightning cable. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save the $100 and put that into an SSD upgrade for my Mac Mini. But we're going to get to that.
You know what, though, Steven? I'm still using the best Apple Magic Keyboard, and this thing still takes AA batteries. If
I don't know how that's the best. How is that the best? It doesn't even have Touch ID.
No, it's the feel. Listen, I'm a writer. I write 5,000 words a week. I don't care about Touch ID. I don't care about whether it uses. Why do I need Touch ID on my keyboard?
What about when you need to have, if you're going to buy something while you're on your Mac and you need to, I know the double tap on the watch, though, I feel like it's not as.
Also, there's a Touch ID button literally like right there. It's so close. It's just right there.
Because you're using a MacBook Pro.
Yeah,
it's not a desktop.
As a normal person does.
No, but I have a Mac Studio, so if I didn't have the Magic Keyboard, like, there is no Touch ID option. Anyway, this is why people leave us 5-star reviews and say you're not affable. Okay,
they meant is I'm just contrarian. I'm ornery.
You're ornery.
I'm very affable.
The other guy, ornery.
I'm affably ornery.
Affably ornery. So anyway, that's the iMac. It's a nice upgrade if you're in the market for it. I was close to getting one because I was like, this would be a great family computer. The kids could like use Final Cut on it. But I was like, it's day one of a week of announcements. Something more is coming, and something more did. On Tuesday, Apple released this guy, the totally redesigned Mac Mini. I'm going to refresh this page just if you're watching so you could see this animation one more time. Best animation for intro product, I think, yet. I think this might be the top one. It's really good.
The pirate flag is good. I will give him that.
The pirate flag is good, and also the little like 2 or 1.5 minute stop motion Mac Mini video, very good, very good. There's no hydraulic press in sight. It's great. it's such a good ad. But this thing is so tiny, Jason. It is 5 inches square, and if you were wondering, the Apple TV is 3.6 inches square. So it's just a little bigger than an Apple TV. The new Mac Mini is 2 inches tall, which is taller than the Apple TV, but it's just so tiny, and it's packed with ports. It's packed with power. Sorry, I was going for alliteration, I guess. But
for context, the size of this thing, a CD case is 4.75 inches. So it's roughly the footprint of a CD case. Now, I understand that most of our listeners don't even know what I just said because they've never seen a CD in their life.
They know.
Leave that in your 5-star review. How many CDs do you still have in your home?
If you have books.
I think the over-under is 6, I'm guessing, for most people.
But this thing is super interesting because, one, you can get it with the M4 chip, which is cool, but also introduced the M4 Pro, and you can get it up to 12-core CPU, 16-core GPU. So this thing can be a little powerful machine, if you want to do video editing and such. And it's got the ports, Jason. It has 2 USB-C on the front and a headphone jack. And then on the back, 3 Thunderbolt ports. Thunderbolt 4 if you get the M4 version. Thunderbolt 5 if you go with the M4 Pro. We're going to talk about the differences there. We're going to try to in a second. HDMI, Ethernet, power, and the power adapter thing is still built in. So it's still just like that infinity barrel cable to charge this thing. So cool, and I love this thing. And it's still $599. You can get this for $599, Jason.
You can get it for $499 with an education discount.
Mind blown. So the new Mac Mini is awesome. The display situation with the M4 Pro, again, I'm going to refer you to the tech specs page because the M4 can now support 3 displays, 2 at 6K and then 1 at 5K. Or the M4 Pro can support 3 displays at 6K at 60 hertz, and then 1 display. Anyway, you should just look at this page.
Yeah.
I'm just showing it. I'm going to link this in the show notes. Just look at this page.
Well, and this explains why the iMac only supports 2 external displays because the M4 can only support 3 displays, and one of them is built into the iMac, right? So you can still connect 2 external displays, and I think they can be up to 6K because the internal display is like what, 4.5K on a 24-inch iMac. It's not a 5K because you have to get a studio display for that. So yeah, it's very complicated. We don't actually know any of the things we're saying right now, but read
I
the
read
page.
it. But that information was good because I read it from Apple's.
No.
Tech
I don't mean that
page.
we're wrong. I mean we don't know what we're saying is on.
Oh, absolutely. That is absolutely
Right. I'm not saying we made that up. I'm just saying that the words have lost all meaning to me.
That is absolutely true. This is the bento box for the Mac Mini. You can get it up to 8 terabytes and 64 gigs of unified memory, and it starts at 16. So once again, this entire lineup starts at 16, which makes that base model, except for the 256 SSD, really attractive. But Jason, I don't know if you tried this. If you spec out a Mac Mini, this is not so much mini in price, if you know what I mean. I'm going to go all the way. Let's go with the, did I get the M4 Pro here? No, that's the M4 chip. Hold on, let me go back. We're doing this live on the show. I got a M4 Pro, and the M4 Pro is how you get up to like 64 gigs of RAM. You need to have the most expensive chip. I'm going to max this thing out. 8 terabyte storage, which is a $2,400 upgrade. You can spend $4,700 US on a Mac Mini if you really want to.
That 8 terabyte SSD upgrade should come with a Kia Soul. Like seriously,
it's
$2,400 just for that upgrade. You can buy a 4 terabyte SSD for like $450 from Crucial.
I know. It should at least come with a Magic Mouse with USB-C.
Oh my gosh.
What I mean?
It should come. The thing should at least have an SD card slot reader in the front of it if you're going to do that. I don't understand.
That actually is a good point. I actually forgot about that. The SD card slot is removed, which was a part of the Mac Mini, like the previous M2 version. So no SD card slot, which is one of the reasons why I'm holding on to my Mac Studio. And I'm hoping, I posted this too. This thread also did numbers. I posted a picture of my Mac Studio because I am one of those people. I use all the ports. You know what I mean? I use every part of the Buffalo. And every port here, and people were like, use a Thunderbolt dock. Listen, there's 2 Thunderbolt docks, I think, already plugged into this thing. But anyway, it's connected to my studio display, my A10 Mini Pro video switcher, my Rodecaster Pro 2. Then I have a Thunderbolt dock with 3 external SSDs plugged into that. I have Ethernet. I have my Stream Deck pedal. I have my keyboard from Keychron connected via USB. No, I'm not doing Bluetooth because it's too much latency. And the HDMI out is going to my Blackmagic A10 Mini as a video source. No, I'm not using the headphone jack because my Rodecaster Pro 2 does that. But anyway, I use it all, Jason.
Did you just say your keyboard would have too much latency with Bluetooth?
The Keychron does. The Magic Keyboard doesn't. The Magic Keyboard is like instant, but the Keychron ones, you like press a key and it's like, I'll think about it. Like, give me a minute, you know? It's like one of those.
Okay.
You gave me a little bit of a Robert De Niro face.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to say is if you get the M4 Pro, and we're going to talk about when we get to the MacBook Pros, the M4 Max, the Thunderbolt ports turn into magically convert to Thunderbolt 5. So these are the first Macs with Thunderbolt 5 support. This is going to get you higher data speed. I'm going to put a link to this Macworld article in the show notes. But it supports up to 8K monitors over Thunderbolt 5. Whether or not the Macs support that is a Mac OS thing. But anyway, Thunderbolt 5 as a spec supports up to 8K monitors, up to 540 hertz. I don't even know what you do with that. But anyway, the more bandwidth is the bigger deal, which I think they didn't have the number on here, but what is the number?
So it's 80 gigabits per second, gigabytes per second. Well, it's the GBs per second. I don't know which one it is.
Gigabytes per second.
Okay, it's gigabytes per second. Yeah.
People yell at you when you say bits and it's bytes, and when
so that's why I'm just admitting I have no idea. So it's 80 of them. Yeah, it's 80 of them in both directions, right?
As opposed to 40.
Yep. 40 so that's for data transfer. But then it also can support up to 120 for supporting those monitor configurations. So it'd be 100. You get 80. In that case, you get 120 out of the computer and 40 back to the computer.
Right.
So you can
push
those huge displays. Yeah.
Which would use for displays because you're sending more data to the display from your computer. Also, more power throughput. You can get up to 240 watts through Thunderbolt 5 as opposed to the 140 from Thunderbolt 4. So Thunderbolt 5 is real. I mean, it's a thing. I don't know what I would do with it, but it's cool.
You can run your pressure cooker off of your Mac Mini. Well, one thing we missed though, but while we're talking about displays, yes. On the iMac, I just realized that we didn't talk about this, but you can now get the nano-texture display on the iMac. So I was thinking about like they're bringing that everywhere. It was on the Studio display and the XDR, and then on the iPads, and now it's on the iMac. And we'll talk about the MacBook Pros in a minute. But like, I feel like they're like, I don't know, like we don't think the Mac Mini doesn't matter because you have to bring your own display anyway. But
BYOD
exactly, bring your own accessory. I think wasn't it BYOKMD
keyboard mouse display KMD,
something like that? Yeah,
BYOKMD. Yeah,
just bring it all.
Now, I did not get a nano-texture iPad, and I still wonder if I regret that. I don't know if I regret it or not. I went to the store and like looked at it. I look at it from the side, and it's like Apple Store lighting is perfect anyways, so it's like there's no glares anywhere anyway. So I'm not. Do you have any nano-texture or anything?
Well, no, and I really did not want a nano-texture display on my iPad, but then I put a paper like protector on it.
So you did the thing anyway. Okay.
But at least now I could take it off. If I wanted
that is true. That is true. John Gruber was out there saying he wants a nano-texture iPhone, and I'm like, I don't know if that'll happen.
You can buy screen protectors for that too.
Yeah, I know, but nano-texture etched. Anyway, so the M4 Mac Mini, I do want two other quick things. In the announcement video, there was a quick aside to Final Cut, and Apple was like, and in the new version of Final Cut, you'll be able to transcribe for captions. And it's like, wait a minute. What? Like, this is not a thing that you can do in Final Cut right now. There's no transcribing anything. And so they show the screenshot of Final Cut. It's a project. There is a tool, like a little magic wand tool, which is not in the current version of Final Cut. And then there's a transcribe to captions, and it shows the captions appear on this like vertical video. I reached out and we have nothing to announce at this time. So I don't think there's no more information on this, but it seems like there will be a new version of Final Cut coming. Maybe, I mean, all these Macs actually come out next Friday. So if you order them and you got it for like day one shipping, it's November 8th, next Friday. Maybe we'll see a new version of Final Cut come out alongside these new Macs. A lot of times you see software updated. But I'm very curious about this transcribing, because if this would be huge for Final Cut, because Premiere does this, DaVinci, so many services transcribe your content, even let you edit via text, like Riverside, and also Premiere. But Final Cut's been kind of behind on this. And so this hopefully means transcribing your content. We'll see.
Yes. Well, okay. My understanding, that's how I'm going to say this, of what this is basically the Instagram ad captions feature, right? So, and that's why, but I don't think this is going to have any editing implications. I think this is
probably not editing, but I mean, if it's transcribing for captions, it's transcribing your project. And ideally, I would like, the reason why this is a big deal for me is when I export from Final Cut, I basically generate an MP3 file that I throw into Transcriptionist to get a transcript to run through ChatGPT. And so if this can cut down on that step and let me export both the video file and a text transcript and SRT transcript for like YouTube captions, this would save a lot of people a lot of time. So that's why I'm excited about it.
And that may be true. This was, I think, again, my understanding is this is sort of in the context of they're using some machine learning /AI /something to improve the ability to make vertical videos, right? Because they have like a smart conform feature, which will do a better job of following the subject, even better than it was in the past. And essentially what they want you to do is do all of that work in Final Cut to the extent that you can, and then you can share it on TikTok or on Instagram or on whatever. So I feel like what you're saying is, yes, that'd be wonderful. I think that this is more like downstream of all of that. I don't know that you'll be able to export these. I could be wrong.
We'll see. We will see. I'm excited for it. It was a throwaway line in the video, and it's like, you got to listen closely. These guys, they sneak it in there. A very cool announcement video, by the way, where Jeff Turnus, he like unveils the Mac Mini, and then you fly through the port on the anyway. I thought that was fun. Right before we take a break, you had an article. You were showing off the Mac Mini. Were you most excited for the Mac Mini after this full week of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my point was that the Apple is just showing off. Now, I acknowledge in my article that I've said that 4 times now. The M4 MacBook Pros, or iPad Pros were just showing off. The M1 MacBook Air was just showing off. Like the point, but with the Mac Mini, the difference is they were able to do things that no other computer company can do. They made this. Also, by the way, this is not a Mac Mini. This is a Mac Studio Mini, right? Just look at it. It's a Mac Studio Mini. That design language has nothing to do with the previous Mac Mini. People are like, oh, but it got taller. Yes, it got smaller than the Mac Studio. This is the Mac Studio Mini is what this thing is, right? Like, and so it has ports on the front.
Ports on the front, I feel like is like the form factor differentiator because the Mac Mini.
Yes, exactly. And so I feel like my just takeaway from this thing, I haven't used one. I haven't even touched one at this point. I'm looking forward to potentially reviewing them in the future. But like, it is Apple doing things that it can only do because it controls the entire stack. All of this is just made possible by Apple Silicon, and it turns out that Apple is very good at making its own chips. Like they just are. Like we know this is true. We know what the M4 can do. I have an M4 iPad Pro right here. You have one as well. Like there's no surprises in terms of this, and this will just be better. Why? Because it has a fan, right? Like, but if you think about the M4, like they can put it in an iPad. It doesn't need much space. That's old true. Footprint of the Mac Mini was just like ridiculous how much empty space was in there. In 2011, that form factor had an optical drive in it. Right? Like there was a super drive in there. It didn't stick around for very long, but the first one had a super drive. So I think it's impressive. I think it's Apple doing the things that it can do. Like this is sort of like the logical form factor for this computer. And I'm glad they got there.
And this was the one thing I bought this week. The MacBook Pros tempted me. I checked my trade-in value, and I thought that this is really not worth it. My M3 Pro is so good. Like, I don't know why. But I got the Mac Mini because I have a Mac Mini right now. It's an i7, an Intel, Jason. I almost wanted to spit when I said that. It's an Intel i7, and it runs my Downy transloader workflows, Homebridge, stuff like that. It's the computer that I'll remote into sometimes if I'm like away, and I want to replace that. And so I'm going from an Intel i7 to this M4 Mac Mini, and I'm going to connect it to, like, the Mac Mini lives in my entertainment center, and so I'm actually going to connect it to my receiver via HDMI also, because I'm like, maybe, I don't know, just see like what does a downloaded movie look like when I play it through the Mac Mini. Because I believe it can do all the Dolby Atmos and everything. So I want to try that. And also as a family computer, if I hook it up to the TV, I have an excuse to buy USB-C peripherals. But also I can then tell my kids, like, if you want to use a Mac because you want to do Final Cut or you want to do Logic on a faster computer than your iPad, you can come to the living room and just pick up this keyboard and mouse, and you have this M4 Mac Mini on the family TV. So, yeah, I'm excited for that.
I think it's interesting the number of people who are very excited for the Mac Mini and are going to basically stick them in a closet or in an entertainment
That's where they're the best.
But I'm like, this Mac Mini is a reasonable upgrade for a lot of things. Like especially now that they come with 16 gigs of memory. Like that's the deal. Yeah.
That's the deal. All right, we have a ton more announcements to get to, but I want to thank our first sponsor, Audio Hijack. Listen, when you get that new M4 Mac, iMac, Mac Mini, and MacBook Pro, whatever, this should be one of the first apps you download and install, because Audio Hijack is the best way to record audio on your Mac from any application, from USB mics or audio interfaces, everything. And they just updated Audio Hijack with a new feature. I don't even know if it's on this landing page yet, but I got an email. If you do iPhone mirroring to your Mac, Audio Hijack can now record the audio from iPhone mirroring. Wild. That's the power of Audio Hijack. Jason and I are using Audio Hijack right now to record the audio of this podcast, and I use it all the time. Every time I record a video, Audio Hijack is recording the audio in the background. I love it because it's easy to use. You put the blocks, whether it's inputs, outputs, recording the files to MP3, WAV, record to multiple formats at the same time. You can record an MP3 and a WAV, just add more blocks, and Audio Hijack can handle all of it. And I love how Audio Hijack lives in the menu bar. You can run any of your custom sessions at any point. That's what I did right before we started recording. And then you can actually get levels in the menu bar. So I'm looking at my Mac menu bar right now and actually see the levels of my microphone in the menu bar. So I can always look up and make sure I know I'm good. It's being recorded, getting signal. And again, it's just super powerful for recording, live streaming, recording from apps, whether it's Safari or any app on your Mac. It can just capture all of it. So here's what you do. You go to macaudio.com/primarytech, or you can just go to macaudio.com. The important thing is use the coupon code TechXX, and you get 20% off Audio Hijack or any of their bundles, which I use Loopback also. Piezo is a great, just a simple recording tool if you just want to hit one button to record. All of their stuff, 20% off with the coupon code TechXX. That'll let them know you heard about it here on Primary Technology. macaudio.com/primarytech. Their link is in the show notes. TechXX for 20% off. Our thanks to Audio Hijack and Rogue Amoeba for sponsoring this episode. So good. That's crazy. You can record the audio from your iPhone mirroring. Wow. Are you still using that? You still using iPhone mirroring a lot?
Yeah, although the most common use case where I use it is a notification pops up on my Mac and I click on it, not thinking, oh, that was an iPhone notification, which is actually the way it should work, right? And then all of a sudden the thing pops open and you get to see the little letters filling up or whatever, and then it pops open and I'm like, I should have just picked up my phone. But it is nice that I don't have to. Like, I can just look at it, because a lot of times, like, my phone is either being used like it is now as a camera, or it's sitting over there charging or whatever. So yeah, I use it. I don't do some of the fancy things you can do. I saw a demo of like CapCut where you can just drag video files from your desktop on your Mac into it and then export them back over. Like, it's pretty cool.
That is cool. It is cool. All right, then on Wednesday of this week, we got the final Mac announcement for the week, which was the new M4 and M4 Pro and M4 Max MacBook Pro. Actually, 3 models of MacBook Pro, now all updated to the M4. Not only do you get that more powerful chip, still comes in 2 colorful options, silver and space black. That's it. Although you can get space black on the base model M4 MacBook Pro if you really wanted to.
Yeah, because they got rid of space gray.
That's right, no more space gray. It's all space black. And if you look really closely, if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/@primarytechshow, you know that wallpaper on the MacBook Pro, you know what that spells out, Jason? You don't need to buy this because you already have an M3 Pro. That's what it actually spells out to me.
M3 Pro?
No, it actually spells Pro, supposedly.
Yes, I know. It
I
does.
was just kidding. But anyway, that's the MacBook Pro. Here's the bento box from the announcement. So you can get up to 8 terabyte SSD, up to 128 gigs of unified memory, which is wild. If you get the M4 Pro or M4 Max version, you can get Thunderbolt 5. With those ports turn to Thunderbolt 5. Also, the base model MacBook Pro, the regular M4, now has a 3rd Thunderbolt port, which it used to only have 2, so you get an extra port. And there's a bunch of like technical specs about the chips and all that kind of stuff. I would refer you to the Accidental Tech podcast if you really want to nerd out about chips and all that kind of stuff. And nano-texture display you can now get on a MacBook Pro. Matt is back. Matt is back. They didn't use that tagline, but I think they should have. Matt is back.
I'm glad they did not, but
Matt is back. MATTE. Anyway, also the tech specs page, if you want to know like what displays these things support, it is, it's a lot. I'll just, you could just look at that for a second. That's all the things. You got DisplayPort 2.1 with Thunderbolt 5. HDMI out can support up to 8K resolution at 60 or 4K at 240. It supports a lot of displays. And I checked my trade-in value for my M3 Pro MacBook Pro, and I was going to get like $900-something for it. And so if I were to upgrade like to an equivalent M4 Pro, I would have to like pay out like $1,700. And also like for what benefit? I don't use external displays with my MacBook Pro. I don't like the videos that I edit. I wouldn't experience any difference in speed. So I want everybody to know I am safe from upgrading unnecessarily my MacBook Pro. Marked safe. But it's cool.
Yeah.
Nano-texture. There you go.
Yeah, I think the MacBook Pros they seem uninteresting because they look the same, right? With the exception of the base model, which now gets the extra Thunderbolt port, which is a big deal, to be honest. Like if you're using a MacBook Pro, like the MacBook Pro is essentially the Mac Studio that you can put into a backpack and take with you, and you saw the back of Steven's Mac Studio. It's just full of cords and stuff, right? So give people all the ports that they want. It's a pro computer. The thing about that base model, you know, it in my mind, it feels like, why would anybody buy the M4 MacBook Pro? But then you realize, like, you get 36 gigs of memory with that thing. Like, it's like not a bad deal to once you like start to spec them up, you can like get that's a good computer. And I think that the M4 Pro and M4 Max, which we haven't seen in person yet, because the only one we've seen is the M4 and it's in an iPad. So we don't really understand the performance of these things. I think that the M4 Pro and M4 Max are going to be a more significant increase in performance over the M3 versions than the M3 was over the M2.
Yeah.
I think this is like the real deal.
And Apple just kept comparing things to like the M2 and even the M1 in the announcement videos. Like, yeah, that was the comparisons. But I mean, this is the base model M4 MacBook Pro. I mean, for $1,800, you can get the 16 gigs of memory, a terabyte SSD, and you get an M4 chip all in the MacBook Pro body style, which means you get that HDMI port, you got all the Thunderbolt ports, SD card slot for $1,800. That's a good deal. And
like the display. I mean, that display, don't underestimate that display, that HDR display. Like and they made it brighter, right? It's capable of being brighter when it's not in HDR mode. So the SDR mode is brighter now, which if you're someone who works outside with a MacBook Pro occasionally, like the fact that you can get the nano-texture and the thing just gets brighter, honestly. And you talked about the middle one there, the base one, right? Starts at like what, $1,400, $1,600, even with a 512. Like if you were debating between upgrading your MacBook Air and buying the base model M4 MacBook Pro, and you don't travel a ton, so you aren't worried about the difference in the weight, honestly, that base model is like, that's a pretty good deal.
It is a great deal. And like you were saying, 1,000 nits of brightness on these newer models for standard def content, like not HDR, as compared to 600 nits on the previous models. So that's a big difference in the max brightness. Plus, these can now dim to 1 nit in low light situations, whereas the previous was 2 nits. I don't know how much difference that is in reality.
It's half.
Fair enough. Half a nit, or half the brightness.
Exactly.
One nit as opposed to 2 nits. So yeah, that was the whirlwind of Apple announcements this week. Pretty solid. Jason, why do you think they separated this into 3 different? Because they actually did videos for each thing, and if you put all the video times together, you have about an hour event, which like last year's Scary Fast event, like I think the last year's Scary Fast event was actually like 30-something minutes. Like it wasn't even an hour. Like they could have done one big event, even if it was just a streaming thing. Why do you and they had people, at least influencers, some go out to LA to see these computers in person. Like I saw Andrew Edwards, iJustine, The Verge was there. Like they actually went in person and got to take pictures of all this stuff. Why do you think they did 3 instead of 1? Just change it up?
Well, I mean, there's two things I have thoughts on there. One, it does seem as though Apple is just trying different things, right? The iPhone event and WWDC are the only ones that are like, we know exactly what's going to happen every year. They're going to do this developer conference. Here's the format. They're going to invite people to the Steve Jobs Theater for the iPhone event. Everything else, it seems like they're just sort of experimenting, right? The M4 iPads was just like, they did a thing in, I think, London and in New York City where they invited people to do, but they invited people to a very small space to just watch the video, like the same thing you could have watched yourself, right? It's like, so I think they're just trying some different things. And this is another iteration of that, because you're right. This could have just been a Mac event, but why wouldn't you want 3 days of coverage on something if right? Why would you want 1 day of coverage if you can get 3 days out of it, right? Because people are talking about these and they laddered them up. So they talked about the M4 Pro, then they talked about the M4, and then the M4 and the M4 Pro, and then the M4 Max. And so they're sort of building on it, which is the reason I thought like, oh man, the Mac Mini should be last because it's the most exciting one. It's the biggest difference. But then I'm like, but you can't talk about like the Pro and Max and then go back and be like, this one, like it's the Pro. Right. So I think that they just were like, why wouldn't we want 3 days of press coverage instead of just 1?
They did. It felt like they took over the week because even I was like scrambling. Like We're a tech show, not strictly Apple. And so I was just like trying to find like what else happened this week. But it was all Apple, like all week, pretty much everywhere. I mean, there were some things we're going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, they got 3 days of coverage. Their earnings call is today as we record on Thursday. I'm not, I don't know, but they probably made a lot of money. That's usually the earnings report.
Or maybe they didn't, and they were just trying to make us all look at these pretty Macs. I don't think that's true, so don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's true either. We'll have to see. We'll report on that next week. The earning call's like late in the afternoon.
We can report on it right now. They made a lot of money.
Yeah, they made a lot of money. The other update, which was very quiet, but I found significant, and you wrote an entire article about this.
Biggest deal of the whole thing.
The biggest deal of the whole thing. The MacBook Air, which I threw a wild card in my predictions. I was like, it would make sense, I thought, to throw an M4 in the MacBook Air also, because I'm like, M4 iMac, M4 Mac Mini, you're updating the MacBook Pros. Why not just throw the M4 in the MacBook Air? I'm curious if you have a theory on that. But they announced that the MacBook Air, the M2 or the M3, I believe, you actually starts with 16 gigs of unified memory, doubles that. Likely, I think, well, it's not an Apple Intelligence thing because I thought the M2 and M3.
Nope, it's 100% an Apple Intelligence thing. Here's the reason why.
Okay.
So Apple devices require 8 gigs of memory to run Apple Intelligence. So if you're running Apple Intelligence, we say they require 8 gigs. We don't know how big that model is, but it has to load that whole model into memory in order to run it, which means if your device only has 8 gigs, it's all being used for Apple Intelligence, which means the performance of that device overall is going to seem like it's gone down if you only have 8 gigs of memory. So they've upped it to 16 because you're going to be basically shelving off part of it when you're using Apple Intelligence for that purpose. So you still are going to want to have other, like if you're using I don't think writing tools is that intensive of a thing, but you don't want your computer to feel like it's slowing down just because you're using Apple Intelligence. So I think this is 100% because of that. And the reason that I'm really confident in saying that is they updated a 2-year-old laptop that they're still selling as the entry-level $999 device that you can just buy if you don't want to spend $1,200 on the new version, the current version, and they didn't change the price. They just doubled the memory. Honestly, that M2 MacBook Air 13-inch with 16 gigs of memory and 256 gigs storage is the best Mac deal you can buy right now. It's actually the best Mac deal I think you've ever been able to buy.
It is a crazy good deal. The 256, if you're now, I will say, previously, if you were going to get a base model computer and you were like, I can upgrade one thing, it was always difficult to say, do you upgrade the memory? Do you upgrade the SSD? Now you actually don't have to make that choice. So if you're getting the base model and you have just a little more to upgrade something, now you can jump up to that 512 gigabyte SSD, which I think makes it more a long-term computer. Like I feel like you can use that for years and be good. And you get the 16 gigs standard of memory, which that's wild.
But even if you don't update the storage, iCloud storage is a real thing. Dropbox is a real thing. You can store a lot of things. And if you're thinking of, as a parent, if I'm looking at buying something for a kid, well, actually, I'm going to go to Walmart and buy the $649 M1 MacBook Air at this point. I'm not kidding. Like, that's what I would buy. Yeah. That's still an amazing.
It's a good deal.
If they would have updated that to 16, like, they would have sold them out. They wouldn't be able to make them fast enough. That would have been such a killer deal. But seriously, for $649, anyway. Yeah. I think, though, by doubling the memory in that M2 MacBook Air, like, it's the best value, even with only 256 gigs of storage. I think that's adequate for that device, right? Like, I think it is.
So if you get the base model $999, which is $899 with an education discount, so that's wild. 16 gigs memory, 256. If you wanted to upgrade to 512, it is a $200, not $100 upgrade. So it does bring it up to $1,200, which is a significant difference. Especially if you're looking at education discount and other things. But my goodness, 16 gigs of memory, that's sweet. Sweet. Can you get a Mac now with only 8 gigs? I don't think so.
Just the M1 MacBook Air, which you can still buy from Walmart.
Right, but buying directly from Apple, every Mac is 16.
All the new Macs are 16, everything, or all the current, exactly.
Right, yeah, because the Mac Studio and Mac Pro already started with, I think, 32 or 16, something like that. Oh my goodness, that Mac Studio just zoomed into my face. I didn't know what was happening. Yeah. So speaking of what are you going to use that RAM for, we're going to have to talk about image playgrounds because, listen, I have access, and it is horrifying. What I've discovered Image Playgrounds could do. I want to show some of the results. But
what you think is horrifying is what it thinks of you, just to be clear.
that is correct. Well, and also, like, I've sent pictures of my wife, my kids, my parents. I sent them all through there, and let me tell you.
Nate was good, actually. Nate was good.
Nate's got the best picture. I'm going to show Nate in a second. Nate is our friend from, and my good friend from Movies on the Side as well. But anyway, well, I would thank 2 more sponsors this week, which is amazing. This is our first 3 sponsor episode. Thank you, by the way, for everyone listening and watching, because that means people actually want to advertise on our show, which is awesome. But our next sponsor is Notion AI, another thing we use every week. I'm literally looking at a Notion document as we record, because that's what Jason and I use to collaborate, to do all the show notes. And Notion is perfect for that. We put our notes in there. We put the links. You can attach all the kinds of things. Notion is super powerful too. I mean, you can do images, PDFs. I'll save PDFs for like this sponsor break. Put that PDF right in the Notion document, and then I can just click it and access it there. Notion is incredibly powerful. And now with Notion AI, it is even more powerful. The new Notion AI, it's the single AI tool that does it all. You can search across Notion and other apps, generate docs in your own style, analyze PDFs and images, and it'll chat with you about everything. So you can organize all your tasks, all your projects, and use Notion AI, which has knowledge from GPT-4 and Claude, and it can chat with you about any of those topics. You can also just select text in a Notion document and ask it to summarize, ask it to rewrite, and even prompt Notion to generate things. Like if you want, give me 5 bullet points based on this topic or this text, all that kind of stuff, Notion AI can do it. Jason, you actually had some things you wanted to try, right, with Notion AI and transcripts and stuff? What is it capable?
I mean, I just typed in something that we didn't talk about, so it's not going to be a very impressive thing. But I do this occasionally because I use Notion for also all of my articles that I write. I keep a database of that. But also, because we have everything in there, I can just ask it, like, when is the first time we talked about Tim Cook? And it'll look through all of our show notes, and it'll be like, in episode 17, whatever, you talked about this, and here's what you guys talked about. Like, I find that really useful. I do that for articles all the time. I'll be like, when did I write about this, and what did I say? And because if you put all your transcripts in here, LLMs are very good at this. You give them a source of information and ask them questions, and they don't hallucinate. It's really nice. So yeah, it's great.
It is really nice. It is great. And so you should definitely try Notion. Try Notion for free when you go to notion.com/primary technology, all lowercase, notion.com/primary technology. The link's also in the show notes. You can click it there to try the powerful, easy to use Notion AI today. And when you use our link, you're supporting the show. That's notion.com/primary technology. Thanks to Notion for sponsoring this episode. And also, this is really cool, another podcast is sponsoring our podcast, which is awesome. The Data Citizens Dialogue Podcast. So listen, as a listener of Primary Technology, you're probably interested in like data and how data works in data companies, data security, and privacy. Well, that's a great reason to check out the Data Citizens Dialogues show. It's forward-thinking, brought to you by the folks over at Calibra, the leader in data intelligence. You'll hear firsthand from industry titans, innovators, and executives from some of the world's largest companies as they dive into the hottest topics in data. You'll get insights to everything from popular staples such as AI governance and data sharing, down to more nuanced questions like how do we ensure data readability at a global scale. I actually listened to the episode right here, The Power of Common Data Language. It was super interesting. It was with special guest Nicola Askham, and they talked about data science and how it works like in a company, the things about security and privacy risks, and how handling data within large-scale companies, how that works. It was fascinating. She also has a British accent, so that was just kind of fun to listen to. I mean, I'll be honest. So you should totally check out this show. And while data may be shaping our world, Data Citizens Dialogue is shaping the conversation. So you can follow the Data Citizens Dialogues on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. And I'll put a link to that show in our show notes, so you can just click over and watch or listen to it there. So our thanks to Data Citizens Dialogue also for sponsoring this episode. Very exciting.
Good stuff.
Exciting. All right, Image Playgrounds, Jason. It finally hit yesterday. You got it a day before me, and you were sending me Genmoji, and I didn't want to see any of it. It was just making me mad because I didn't have access to it. And so I got the notification. I kept going to Image Playgrounds throughout the last week just to see, like, maybe it's there and they didn't notify me, but it wasn't there. But yesterday, got the notification. I went to it and I immediately tried to start generating things, images of me, and I just have to say that this is what Genmoji and Image Playgrounds thinks I look like, and it is horrifying. And I get it, but also why? So you could do this like animated kind of 3D render, like Pixar style, and then you could do like drawn style. And I found out it really doesn't want to generate like full body images of people, because I tried really hard, because you can prompt it. They have like suggestions where Image Playgrounds, you could say like, here's a picture of a person, and it'll have suggestions of like, here's a theme like beach, sunset, fantasy, and then you can also add things like fireworks or whatever. But you can type in prompts as well. And Jason, I tried so many prompts because I wanted a generated image of me riding a polar bear. I wanted me on a polar bear, and it refuses to do it. It really just wants to do like the headshot or like the shoulders up. It will not show a full body image no matter what. So it put the polar bear on my shoulder. It's a very small polar bear. Pretty cute.
It's right, a polar bear riding you instead of you riding a polar bear.
It took the riding prompt. But I also then went on to generate lots of images. Nate, I hope it's okay that I show your image on here. Nate's actually looks one of the best.
I mean, that is exactly what he looks like, right? Basically.
It is very close to what he looks like. Whereas I generated my entire family. I did ask it because I was trying to see if it would do political images, and so I asked it Donald Trump holding a corn dog, but it only pulls the picture that you have. So I guess this is what I would look like in a suit holding.
This is what you would look like as Donald Trump holding a corn dog.
I guess. Now you can like save an image like of a person to your photo library and then give that to Image Playgrounds, and it will generate an image. So you can do that. But I didn't want to use it very much because your phone gets scorching hot.
Like the hottest you've ever. I mean, this is hotter than if you leave it sitting on the towel at the beach with the screen on.
It's so hot. Like if you ever, like when you first update to like something that indexes your entire phone, like when you first get an iPhone and you like transfer all your stuff and it's indexing all your stuff, hotter than that. Like think even hotter.
It's blazing.
It's blazing hot. And I was like, I generated like 2 things and I was like, you know what? I'm done with Image Playgrounds for a while.
Yeah, I did like 7 or 8 of them in a row, and it was insane.
I mean, it's interesting. I think it will. On one hand, it feels a bit late because there was like thousands of AI profile image generators for years. Like I did that like 2 years ago, where you can like upload 40 pictures of yourself, and those pictures look better, I think, honestly. Like it actually can look more like you than these Image Playgrounds versions. So it's like, you play around with it a couple times, like that's fine. The Genmoji side, what did you send me? You sent me a chip on fire. And then you were
asking me if you should buy AMD stock, and so I sent you a computer processor on fire.
You sent me this giraffe with a thumbs down. I don't even understand. And then you sent me an avocado?
A smiling avocado? Yeah, listen, you're faced with this prompt, and it's like, what weird thing could I create that's not already an emoji? Because there's a lot of emoji.
Wait, how did you do it? How did you generate this polar bear? This guy riding a polar bear.
I mean, that's what ChatGPT thinks you look like riding a polar bear.
I was thinking, because the ChatGPT integration now with Apple Intelligence, can you ask the voice assistant to generate an image?
Ooh, I haven't tried that. My guess is no.
Generate an image of a middle-aged man riding a polar bear. I just asked. I don't know. It just shows me pictures of polar bears.
Yeah, Apple is playing this super conservative. They do not want this thing to go off the rails at all.
Yeah. Right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, I then sent you. So Genmoji is kind of weird. To get to it in the Messages app, it's like there's Image Playground as one of the apps, like where you would send later or whatever. You can open Image Playground, generate one of those images, and come back. But if you want to send Genmoji, it's like in the...
It's in the emoji.
Yeah,
you just start typing what you want. And if it doesn't exist, it'll just give you the option to make it.
So I'm gonna try. I really want something riding a polar bear. So I'm gonna try and say a snake riding a polar bear. And okay, this is actually horrifying. This it generated a snake riding a polar bear, but it's also like
a mouse-headed snake riding a polar bear.
It's like a mouse-headed snake. Right? I don't even know what to think about this. This will all be the chapter artwork. Oh, here's a normal snake riding a polar bear. So you can have things riding things in Genmoji, just not Image Playground.
Yeah. And if you want to know why the iPhone is not carbon neutral, this right here is why. Because Steven has used 82% of his battery, which he would know if battery percentage was on.
That's true. My phone's already getting hot.
Yeah,
it's generating
that's
that couple. It's starting to get warm. I could feel it. So anyway, that was Genmoji. I was gonna do a video about it once I got access to it, and I'm like, you know what? I think just posting those images.
I think that polar bear has leprosy that you just sent me too.
Oh, does it? Does it really?
Either that or it's a polar bear shaped pretzel and that's salt. I don't know.
You can't zoom in on these Genmoji, which is kind of annoying.
I know, but so if you're looking at it on your Mac, though, the window is bigger, and so I can just see them big.
Okay, you see the leprosy in detail.
I'm just saying, leprosy in detail. There is a title for you.
If we were doing those kinds of titles,
yes.
Yeah, that would... Okay. Anyway, your family seemed to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that I think people will have a lot of fun with, and there will be times like I imagine that younger people who communicate mostly in emoji anyway will love this because they can just send whatever they want. And as a parent, like I guess I appreciate that it sticks pretty close to the rails and it won't be super offensive or whatever. So
I imagine there'll be like Christmas and other wish lists this year for iPhone 16s because, like my kids, they have the base model iPads from like a year or two ago. And my oldest son has an iPhone 13. Like nobody has Apple Intelligence or Genmoji right now. And so I'm expecting to maybe hear something on the list that is capable of Genmoji. We'll see.
Yeah.
But so Apple's earnings are later today. All the other companies had their earnings. So I'm gonna throw to Jason, my affable co-host, to just read the front page of Tech News.
Yeah, basically.
And tell us how much money did people make.
Listen, they're all making a lot of money. Right, like everybody's having a good quarter. So the Microsoft, Google, actually Alphabet, and Meta all reported earnings basically in the last week. All of them are making a ton of money, and the reason is the same. People are using their platforms because of AI, right? Like that's the bottom. I mean, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but everybody's making a lot of money. Google Search is making money. Like all these companies just print money anyway. So this is not going to be a very nuanced conversation about it because we could spend a lot of time talking about it. I would be more interested in what Apple's earnings look like today. We can talk about that next week. Yeah. But the bottom line is they're all making a lot of money, and they're making more money like significantly. Like Microsoft was up 16% over the last quarter, over the same quarter last year.
Right.
Like Meta was up almost 20%. They're all doing fine.
They're all doing just fine.
Well, and actually it is worth mentioning that they're making a lot of money while they're also spending more money than ever because they're all buying NVIDIA GPUs, right? Like all that money is just going to GPUs.
So let me ask you this, because I texted you about this story. I even removed it from our notes because I was like, maybe we don't talk about this. I saw that OpenAI signed a deal, or what happened with AMD, that AMD might be making chips for OpenAI. So basically,
all of these companies cannot get enough GPUs, chips. Right? Okay. And so OpenAI is going to start using AMD chips. It's also trying to start making its own. It's working with Broadcom to do that. So like they would be manufactured, like they've also TSMC, which is the company that makes all of Apple Silicon. They actually make the chips for basically everyone except for Intel. Actually, they make some of Intel's chips now too. Their OpenAI is essentially saying, we need more. People just gave us $6.5 billion. Do you want some? And they're just walking around looking for people who will sell them more GPUs, because that is the limiting factor. Electricity and GPUs are the limiting factor to AI taking over the world. Like that's the end game here. That's how this basically works. And so really that's like NVIDIA has owned that market, which is why they're like basically the second most valuable company in the world at this point, right? They are. It's just because of I mean, I would not be surprised at some point if Jensen Huang, who's the CEO, becomes like the richest person in the world, like because of Nvidia stock. Like they're a $3.3 trillion company, and it's entirely based just on people can't get enough GPUs. And so
that is wild. So yeah. Also, I saw that OpenAI plans to release its next model before year's end. Did you see that?
Well, they've been talking about it, and it's hard to know like exactly. I think that you're talking about Orion.
Orion, yeah.
Yeah, they've said that well, I don't know if they've actually said it publicly, but it has been reported that they plan to do that by December, right? And the difference is that it won't, or unlike its previous models, it will not be necessarily released with ChatGPT, right? And so this is a model that would be either. I mean, again, I'm not a large language model expert, but it would be available through like its API for like enterprise customers. And so we'll see. It'll be interesting. Like this is a model that other people will use to build products on, as opposed to like GPT 4.0, which is ChatGPT. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Well, we'll always keep you updated on the end of the world right here on Primary
Even when we don't
Technology.
know what it means, but we'll talk about it.
We know it. Listen, I use ChatGPT all the
We're
time.
basically what is it, notebook LLM, but we just have a lot more personality. We just say words about things.
We know things. That's the tagline. That's the tagline of the show. We know things.
Yes.
We know things. I wanted to ask you about this article you wrote about the Netflix moments. I don't watch Netflix enough to know what this was or to even see the feature, but it looked cool. So what is Netflix moments?
Yeah, so basically you can now, and I don't know if this is available on all Netflix content or if it's only certain content, because I actually had a hard time finding it when I updated the app. I was not able to find like an example where let me do this. But there are two things that you can do. One, you can, if you're watching a movie and you're like, I love this scene, I want to be able to rewatch it or show, you can tap the moments, and it's basically like bookmarks for a spot in the video. This is like what you can do with podcasts in Pocket Casts, right? Where you can like clip a clip of it,
right?
So you can save them and you can go back and rewatch them. But you can also share those clips now, those moments on social media. So there's a share feature that lets you like send them directly to like Instagram, for example, and then there'll be a link that someone will be able to open in their own Netflix app. And if you think about it, it's cool because it's like this is how Netflix shows spread is they go viral because people love them, and they're just making it easier for people to do the thing they want to do anyway. And I'm in my mind like, yeah, that's the smartest idea in business. Just make it easy for people to do the thing that they want to do that's also beneficial to you.
100%. And like, I wish more would do that. Like, I understand the licensing, copyright, whatever, but if you can have the agreements, and with Netflix's original content, it can decide on its own, I imagine, whether or not to just do this. But I also think about, if Apple TV had this kind of feature, I would share that Ted Lasso dart scene from the first season so many times. And honestly, what I do now is typically find the clip on YouTube and share that link.
Yep.
Because it's just easier, and I know everybody can watch it. But if you could have just easy sharing of a scene like that and share it to your social media with a link to then directly watch the full episode, that would be great. I think Apple should 100% do this, at least with their content.
It must be only certain content, because I'm just like tapping through things and
it's not there.
And I can't like save moments of anything. Maybe it just do I have to like watch it for a while? I don't know. We'll leave Lost going for a while. We're watching the pilot of Lost right now.
It's a good show.
I didn't even know it was on Netflix. I might not cancel my subscription. I'm going to rewatch Lost first. We only signed up for Netflix because we wanted to watch the Simone Biles documentary because we have a gymnast. And so we signed up for it, and apparently I haven't canceled it yet. Because
I like how you saying we have a gymnast is like we bought a gymnast. We have it. It's downstairs.
No.
You mean one of your children are
one of my
is a gymnast.
And she's actually a retired gymnast, but my point is Simone Biles is her hero, so we wanted to watch the documentary that they were doing. So
there you go. If you start watching Lost episodes instead of Friends at night, and then you tell me that you don't have time to watch an episode of whatever it is I told you to watch last week, it's gonna be a problem.
I might just binge watch Lost because I'm flying to Portugal in a couple of weeks and just watch it on the plane.
See, interesting. I binged Ted Lasso season 3 on my last long flight from Tel Aviv back here. But anyway.
I actually need to sleep on that flight, so I probably shouldn't watch anything. But anyway,
you're gonna watch it. Nintendo released a music app, and I just wanted to mention this because I thought it was pretty cool. Actually, I downloaded it and started listening to it. If you have a Nintendo online account, a Nintendo Switch Online member, you can listen to all this like Nintendo music. It's just like in the background.
Is this just the video game music, basically?
It's the video game music. But if you play Nintendo games like Legend of Zelda, like it's really good music and it's really great background music. And so it's a Nintendo music app. I thought that was fascinating. Yeah.
I have nothing to add, but yes, that's cool.
iPhone only. Yeah, iPhone only. All right. I was debating what to do for our personal tech. And I don't know whether to talk about how I bricked my iPad Pro.
I think you should.
Oh,
you should talk about that, and we can talk about the other thing in the bonus content. We need a bonus episode, right?
Okay, yeah. Okay, we'll do that. All right. So here's the personal tech segment of the show. Listen, I don't like messing with betas. As much as I'm on betas now, it's only because I have to make video content of this stuff, and I don't have a backup 15 Pro Max. I didn't keep my 15 Pro Max. I traded it back in. So I was trying very hard to get Image Playgrounds the day it released because I wanted to put that in my video. And so I, downloaded the 18.2 beta on my main iPhone, which is risky enough. But I got the waiting list. And then I saw some people on social media being like, I got right in on my Mac. If you update to macOS Sequoia 15.2 beta, some people were like, I got it on my iPad, but not my iPhone. And I was like, all right, I'm going to upgrade everything. And so I upgraded all the things except my Mac. I'm not willing, because it's such a mission critical device, I don't like putting the beta on my Mac. So I didn't. But I put 18.2 on my phone, and I put 18.2 on my iPad mini and my M4 iPad Pro. And I put it out everywhere, and I still didn't get access. And I was like, all right. And then I was getting this error, this is what happens when you do betas. It's my own doing. But I was getting, every time I would turn on my iPad, I would get this error. It said, display is not from manufacturer. Like, this display is not. I was like,
where did you buy this? Like, you were in a really rough part of Tampa when you bought that iPad.
Yeah, exactly. On the back of a truck. And I'm like, no, this is the built-in iPad. Anyway. So I was tired of seeing that error. I was like, I'm not getting into Image Playgrounds. I backed up my iPad right before I put the beta on it. I'm like, I'm going to downgrade. And now listen, I've downgraded before. Everybody on social media was like, oh, downgrading's risky. Listen, I've downgraded my Macs. I've downgraded my iPhone. I've downgraded. Listen, it's not my first day. Okay, I've downgraded things.
It's not the first thing he's ever bricked, is what he's trying to say.
I think this is the first thing I've ever bricked. I think that's why it took me by surprise. So I downloaded the 18.0.1 file directly from Apple's developer portal. So I got like I'm going to flash the thing. I attached my iPad to my Mac. I see it come up in the Finder. I hold the Option key. I click Restore. So then you can choose the file which to restore to. I choose the 18.0.1. And after a few seconds, it says Installing OS on iPad. I say, great. And then the iPad goes, boom, recovery mode. I said, okay, maybe it's just doing its thing. And now it's stuck in recovery mode. I could not do anything to get this thing out of recovery mode. I tried flashing the 17 dot whatever. I tried putting the 18.2 beta file through the Finder thing. Tried all of that. Tried DFU mode, which is the craziest like hocus pocus button combination.
Device FU is what that mode stands for.
It's like DFU mode is like, not only do you have to have the right button like combination, but the timing has to be perfect. It's like volume up, volume down, sleep button, and then maybe hold the sleep button and volume down, or maybe let it go and then press sleep and volume down at the same time.
Turn around 3 times and spit, and yeah.
Yeah, and then you got an Eye of Newt to the dragon's toenail. You got to let go of the sleep button, hold the volume down for 10 seconds, and then you'll be in DFU mode, but DFU mode, the screen is blank, so you won't really know. And I was like, well, okay. I tried that a bunch of times. Never got it to go into DFU mode. It's just stuck on the recovery screen. It's like, well, listen, this is my own doing. I'll just deal with it. I'm going to go iPad mini all the way one more time. And I got a bunch of Threads people, because I posted on Threads, and a bunch of people calling me, like, I shouldn't have downgraded. I was like, thanks. And I had a couple people say, try the iMyFone app. It's letter I, my FONE app. I'm not linking it. I'm not going to show it on screen because I wouldn't actually recommend using it.
Because it's voodoo is what you're saying, just to be
It
clear.
is the shadiest looking app. Like, if you remember the spammy ads you used to see on websites all the time, this is that, but an app.
Yeah, this is your Mac is infested with a virus, click here, but on an app that you actually willingly downloaded.
I willingly downloaded it. iMyFone. Even the name is like, it's the spammiest name you could, I don't even know. So anyway, I downloaded this app, a bunch of upsells trying to get me to upgrade or whatever, but it said on the website, get out of recovery mode with one click for free. I said, okay, you said I can do it. I plugged in my iPad to the Mac with the iMyFone app running. There's a little button that says exit recovery mode. I clicked it, and it just worked. It just got out of recovery mode instantly, and I don't know. I immediately unplugged my iPad. I immediately deleted the iMyFone app. I used Hazel to sweep my entire Mac and download any file might be associated with it, and I got my iPad out of recovery mode.
I do love that if you Google iMyFone, the people also ask questions are, is it safe to install iMyFone? Is iMyFone a Chinese company? Does iMyFone really work? How do I get rid of iMyFone? These are the things that people want to know when they Google this app. It's
the first app or piece of software that I would say unequivocally worked and fixed my problem and would 100% not recommend. I don't know of anything else I could say that about.
It unlocked your iPad, and also all of your information is for sale on the dark web at the moment.
I was really trusting in Hazel at that point to just delete it off my computer as fast as possible. I have not seen any remnants of it.
Did you air gap your computer while you were doing this? See, I would have
that mean?
disconnected from the internet.
Oh shoot! I should have done that. Air gapped. Is that what that means? I never heard of that.
Yeah, it means like a computer that's not connected to any network so that you can't remote into it or hack it or anything like that. But if you were going to do something like this, I would 100% unplug that Ethernet cable, disable Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything.
Well, anyway, if I suddenly disappear midweek and there's no more episodes of this show, you know why. iMyFone. Oh, I should have done that. But anyway, I mean, I deleted it as fast as I could. I'm hoping nothing got sent to wherever. But, you know, I figure the Mac now is so anal about security and permissions. Like, if you just want to change the brightness on your display, it's like, are you sure you want to do that? Do you want to allow that?
Enter your password.
Yeah, change the volume, enter your password.
Right.
And it's like, you have to authenticate for so much. I'm like, I guess I'll just trust macOS. The analinity? What is the word?
The anality? I don't know. That's definitely not the word.
That's not the word, but anyway, the analness.
The overprotectiveness.
The overprotectiveness of macOS. I figured I'd just trust it, and we'll see what happens. And there were no permissions to, like, this app would like to access your local network, and this app would like to access your full disk access. It didn't say any of that, so I think I'm good. But anyway, I unbricked my iPad.
Speaking of brick devices, it's not quite as I didn't put any betas on it. I don't even know what I've done with it now. But I'm trying to figure out if anybody out there knows how to get a 2012 MacBook Air. I'm having the same problem, only my problem is there's no free app you can just download to get it out of recovery mode, because you can't make a restore version of the OS to install on it without a device that can run that OS. And it's like there's this weird cutoff between Lion and I think Mountain Lion where you can download just the DMG file of the old like Lion. But the problem is, if you do that on like a Apple Silicon Mac and you open, what you have to do is like unpackage the installer and then take that installer and use that to create a disk image. But it will not let you unpackage the installer because it can't run on that Mac. And anything newer than that has to be downloaded from the Mac App Store.
Right.
And it will not download them onto your computer if you can't run that operating system. And all of the operating systems that would run on my MacBook Air or my MacBook Pro will definitely not run on this old MacBook Air. Now, my daughter has an Intel MacBook Air, and I had sort of forgotten about this. So I think what I have to do is download like Mountain Lion onto hers before the Mac realizes, why are you going back to a 6-year-old operating system? And get it to do it.
If you go to the App Store and then purchases, usually that is where it will let you download the operating system, if you did actually download it from the Mac App Store back then. But
But it will tell you this operating system will not run on this.
Oh.
I've tried.
Well, I'll
this.
tell you what. I just remembered. I have a box in my garage.
Oh my gosh.
With some computer cables, and there might be a USB flash drive with Lion on it.
With iPhone Mac. I found my phone Mac or something. Is that, you got a flash drive with that you're going to send me?
No. It was one of the boot drives I made, so I'll see if I can find that. But also, I realized my mom still has a 2008 MacBook Pro. I was actually just using it at her house last week.
A 2008 MacBook Pro?
2008. The battery is so swollen
Oh my
that
gosh.
the trackpad is now like elevated above the chassis.
Put that thing in a bag of sand right now.
It works. It works because this is another personal tech story. I was trying to update the software on our Toyota RAV4 and
That's not where I thought this was going. Let me just be honest.
Story. I couldn't get it to do it. But anyway, I'm going to bring my screwdriver over there because I want to take the battery out before it explodes. But also,
Good call.
I might be able to create a boot drive on that.
Ooh.
So I'll try to. Let me ask Apple Intelligence. Remind me to make Jason a boot disk tonight at 6 p.m.
I love how precise it's going to be.
It says make Jason a boot desk. That's Apple Intelligence for you.
Apple Intelligence is about to turn me into a boot desk.
Okay, so I'm going to try that. But yeah, the battery is so swollen. Like you can still use the trackpad because it has tap to click on, but it doesn't depress because the battery is just.
You should not push hard onto that at all, or you're going to have lithium just leaking everywhere.
Oh, I'm going to take it out. I'm taking it out tonight, and I guess you're not supposed to put it in the garbage. But like, what do you do with it?
Put it in a bag of sand and take it to your fire department. That's how you dispose of those. No. You think I'm kidding?
That's what you're supposed to do.
I guarantee you, if you look on your fire department's website disposing lithium batteries, they probably have a section about it.
What if I just dig a hole in her backyard and throw it in there? Does that work?
Sure, same thing. But I told you the story of how my son disassembled a lithium battery up in his bedroom from, I don't remember, from one of his little robotic, I swear we talked about this, but from one of his little robotic toys or something like that. He disassembled the whole thing, and it smelled like this weird solvent smell up there. And I'm like, everyone out. I got a bag full of sand. I put the pieces in there, and it's been sitting on our back patio for 6 months. Actually, I think my wife finally took care of it. But like, I'm like, you guys are. Wow. And then I'm like, Googling poison control. Is this going to kill the children? But apparently, the smell we smelled was not the bad smell. It was just the solvents or whatever. There are other smells that would be bad, but because the battery was basically dead, and it was a pretty small battery. But I will say the inside of a battery is not what you think it is. It was very weird. So.
Like, what is it?
It was like this long. It looked like this long tape-ish, not tape, but like. It was like the consistency of like one of these things, like an alcohol swab, right? But it was like, because that's like wrapped up on the inside of there. But I expected it to just be like full of, I don't know, lithium particles. I don't know what I thought was going to be in the inside of there, but that's not what I thought it was. And I was like, listen, son, there are only 2 rules in this house. We don't hit girls and we don't disassemble lithium batteries. That's it.
Okay, those are good rules. Now I'm gonna have to Google lithium batteries when we stop recording. Anyway, All right. So we're gonna record a bonus episode. I think can we talk about the Jeff Bezos thing?
Yeah, we should.
I want to hear your thoughts on it. So listen, if you want to listen to the bonus episode or get ad-free versions of the show, you can support the show directly in Apple Podcasts. You get the ad-free versions and the bonus episodes, or you can go to primarytech.fm and you click bonus episodes, and you can support the show that way as well. You can also support the show by giving us that 5-star rating and review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you'd like, and we'll give you a shout out here on the show. And yeah, you can watch us on YouTube as well, youtube.com/@primarytechshow. I think we actually crossed 1,500 subscribers. I didn't check. I should have checked, but yeah, I think we crossed it. Oh no, 1467. So here's what we need.
Let's go, people.
At least 33 people from this episode, because there's way more that listen than are subscribed. So go ahead and subscribe so we can get over 1,500. But anyways, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thanks to Notion AI, Audio Hijack. Thank you to Data Citizens Dialogue Podcast for sponsoring the show. Thanks to you for listening and watching, and we'll catch you next time.